Hi, you guys. Today I'm going to explain South Minneapolis to you guys so you guys can kind of understand how South Minneapolis works. South Minneapolis is a very simple place. You have three major cultures there. You have the Hispanic community in Southwest Minneapolis. You have the African American community in South Central Minneapolis. And then you have the Somalian community in Southeast Minneapolis. And then Southeast Minneapolis also has the University of Minnesota. So it's a very complex area. So Southeast Minneapolis kind of goes from Highway 55 to the Mississippi River. And then on the other side of the Mississippi River, there's the University of Minnesota. And then it ends when it hits the suburb of St. Anthony and the city of St. Paul. So that is Southeast Minneapolis. And then you have South Central Minneapolis that goes from Highway 55 to like 35W. And then you have Southwest Minneapolis that goes from 35W to St. Louis Park and Plymouth. So South Minneapolis is built like a giant suburban city. South Minneapolis is pretty much like a giant suburb on steroids. Like South Minneapolis reminds me of like if you go to like Houston, Texas, Austin, Texas, where you just see giant glittering towers and then boom, flat single family homes. That's why South Minneapolis has such a housing crisis because there's nowhere to put people because 95% of the neighborhood is just single family homes, single family homes, single family homes, single family homes. And the only place to shove people if we don't want to destroy a whole single family housing development is in the first ring suburbs because we need there's so many people in Minnesota that need housing that we need to start building apartments in the first ring suburbs because South Minneapolis has so many single family homes that there's nowhere to put people in the city of Minneapolis. So, because South Minneapolis has two major roads, there's Lake Street that goes from St. Louis Park through Southwest Minneapolis, through South Central Minneapolis, through Southeast Minneapolis, over the Mississippi River, and it ends in St. Paul at University Avenue. And then they have Nicollet Avenue that goes from downtown Minneapolis, and Nicollet Avenue goes through South Central Minneapolis, and it will take you all the way to American Boulevard in Bloomington. So those are like the two major shopping streets in South Minneapolis. And my favorite one, to be honest with you, is Nicollet Avenue because Nicollet Avenue turns into Nicollet Mall in downtown. And Nicollet Avenue is perfect because when like you're a bus rider, when you're leaving downtown, you have all those shops. And at least Nicollet Avenue has parking. So people who don't take the bus and that live in the suburbs, when they're going to Richfield and Bloomington, and they want something to eat, they actually can pull over with their cars, Mayor Jake Fry. Things that normal people take and that they will never get rid of because it's safe, it's convenient, and they don't have to worry about homeless people flirting with them and hitting on them and grinding them without consent. And then, they can park there, they can do their shopping, hop back in their car, and then continue driving to Richfield or Bloomington. And then, and I like Nicollet Avenue because it has parking, it has restaurants, and behind the restaurants on Nicollet Avenue, there is apartment buildings and a bunch of single family homes So that's why I chose to live on Central in Columbia Heights, because it's built like Nicollet Avenue, but it's way safer. It's way safer. So then you know, so then you know, it's a perfect place. You know, when I go see my friend Cheryl in Bloomington, I I can go store hopping because the 18 that goes down that road comes every 15 to 20 minutes. So then you know I can get, so after I'm done, if I'm going to Cheryl early or I'm after visiting Cheryl, I can stop by and can shop at all the mom and pop businesses along Nicollet Avenue while going to downtown. And I like it because people who can drive can also park on that road. Perfect. On Lake Street, that goes from St. Louis Park to St. Paul through South Minneapolis, that street has way more shops and way more restaurants, but it lacks parking. In Lake Street, you know, you go down the street and there's the shopping malls, more apartments, and then a bunch of single family homes. So Lake Street, some of, if it was up to me, some of the old buildings that were there, Mayor Jake Fry, if he actually cared about the city, would knock down those buildings, some of those old Ramish buildings, and put parking ramps. So people from the suburbs that actually want to spend money will actually drive to Lake Street, park in the ramps, and do shopping. Because Mayor Jake Fry thinks every normal person wants to hop on a smelly city bus and wants to go places. No, the only people who take the city buses are people like me who are disabled or low income that can't afford a car and that are forced to. Most normal people, they rather have a car where it's dry, it's safe, no homeless people are gonna be grabbing their nuts and try to flirt with them on the bus. Yep. Just if you don't provide people parking, your businesses are going to go broke. And if you read the news, that's why Lake Street is failing in South Minneapolis, because people from like St. Louis Park, Richfield, Bloomington, they're like, why should we drive to Lake Street where there's no parking, no convenience for us with our cars, when we can just go right down the road 10 minutes and shop at our strip malls where we can get parking and we can get there to nice, safe, reliable cars. So I don't blame them for wanting to go Lake Street, and I don't blame Lake Street businesses are fleeing because they're not getting the customer demand because there's no free parking for their suburban customers to park and go shopping. So when I go down to South Minneapolis, a lot of times I like shopping on Nicollet Avenue, and because normal people that don't or that are not forced to take the bus by the state of Minnesota can shop there. I can shop there. You mean? And they have stores for all income groups. So yeah. So like I like Nicollet Avenue the best, and then the best place to shop, if like you want to shop in South Minneapolis, is the Midtown Global Market and the strip malls around the Midtown Global Market, because the Midtown Global Market has a massive parking ramp and it's free. And who does not like free parking? So then and then, you know, you can park at the Midtown Global Market, and the Midtown Global Market has all the stores that someone will ever need. Like, they have, like, restaurant that sells cactus. They have restaurants that sell pizza, like Middle Eastern pizza. They have restaurants that sell normal pizza. They have restaurants like galore, like anything that'll make you fat and obese and make your doctor tell you, hey, you need to walk more and go on a diet. You can, and then they have like unique like mom and pop shops in there, and then the strip malls around the Midtown Global Market, they have like Mexican stores. They have like Asian store. Every time I go past there, one of the Asian stores have a little cat that sits in the sun, and it's like yellow, and every time it senses movement, it goes meow, and the cat does. You can hear it through the window, and the paws move. And so the Midtown Global Market, if you want to shop on Lake Street, that's the best place to park because it's free. And then you can get to all the shops around there, and the Midtown Global Market is it's in central South Minneapolis, and central South Minneapolis is the heart of the African American community in South Minneapolis. So sometimes when I go down there, I'm the only white person like on the street because I am in the heart of their community, and I'm one of those people. I don't care as long as you let me shop, and you stay out of my business. I will stay out of your business, and if you're not a dick to me, I'm not a dick to you. That's my mindset when I go down there. So if they leave me alone, I leave them alone. I go to all my Mexican, Asian, and sometimes there's really good African American stores down there that we'll go in and shop at. And as long as they leave me alone, I leave them alone. And if they let me go in and spend my money and they treat me well in the store, I'll come back. So then down in South Central Minneapolis, I like also is Tom's Popcorn. Tom, my ex friend Madeline, when I was going to Rogers High School, she introduced me to Tom's Popcorn. And like when I go down there now, when I'm on the D line bus and I go down there, when I have time, I'll literally stop because the D line bus literally goes like stops a block away from Mid Tom's Popcorn. So when I get off, I just cut through the graveyard, and then Tom's Popcorn is right next to the graveyard. And there's like a new grocery store, mom pop grocery store next to it. There's like a Starbucks, a Caribou, you mean? And then Tom's Popcorn also sells ice cream. So if like you're not a fan of popcorn, you can also get ice cream. But when you go to South Minneapolis, remember to bring cash with you because a lot of the mom and pop businesses, they don't like using debit cards, and they will charge you for using the debit cards because debit cards, every time you use them at like a retail store, the retail store is charged like a $2 fee. So then the retail store is not making money. So when you go down there and you bring your card, you're going to pay the price of the item, and then they're going to charge you that $2 retail fee. So then you still have to pay the taxes on the item and on top of the fee. So then it's a little bit more expensive using your card in South Minneapolis than it is in just paying cash, just carrying cash. To me, I'm fine with paying that $2 fee because to me, paying those $2 fees is better for me than carrying cash because if you carry too much cash, it'll make you a target. So I'd rather pay the $2 fees on my purchases at some of the mom and pop businesses than carrying too much cash on me, and then me being seen as a target. So when I go down there, I just use my cards and I pay for that. But if you're going to a place like Tom's or whatever, if you want to save money, bring cash with you. Even if you go to a lot of mom and pop hair places, the mom and pop grocery stores, the mom and pop on Lake Street there or on Hennepin Avenue, a lot of them they'll have a sign, hey, we will charge you extra if you use card. Because in South Minneapolis, the businesses very encourage you to use cash. But if you go to a place like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, like a big chain restaurant, they're not going to charge you extra for using cards because they already have the card fees based in their prices because they have an AI system to tell them that. And also, credit card companies give big companies better deals when it comes to the card fees than small companies. So because big companies have more power. So then and they have big companies like Wendy's in South Minneapolis, McDonald's. They used to have a Burger King, but Popeyes to start buying out some of the old Burger Kings that closed. But the fast food restaurants in South, some of them in South Minneapolis, some of the ones in the rougher neighborhoods, you can't sit in them. They ripped out their tables and chairs. So you go in there and you wait, and you just wait in there and you buy your food and then you go home. Because the issue is South Minneapolis, there's some non-savory characters who don't want to be good citizens and a good neighbor, and they'll go to a fast food place like that and start causing trouble and sitting there and causing trouble. And you mean, so to stop trouble from happening, sometimes some of the fast food places don't have sitting anymore. But the closer you get to St. Paul, the closer you get to St. Louis Park, or the closer you get to Richfield, the nicer the fast food joints get, because between like downtown Minneapolis and Lake Street, a lot of the fast food joints are like you go in there, you grab your food, and then like you go home, because that part of Lake Street's kind of rough. That part of South Minneapolis is kind of rough between downtown and Lake Street. But once you get past Lake Street and you go from between Lake Street and Richfield, or Lake Street and Bloomington, or Lake Street and Edina, or Lake Street and St. Louis Park, you're going to get more normal like fast food joints like you used to get out in the suburbs, because there's less troublemakers there. But so South Minneapolis does have its troublemakers. I'm going to be honest with you. There's no point of lying. But the pro of South Minneapolis is, if you're like me and you're disabled and the state of Minnesota says, nope, you can't drive because I have vision issues. That's why my YouTube is called Dustin, the Blind Minnesotan, because, I don't have good eyesight. So I have to take buses everywhere. Like South Minneapolis is a good place if you don't have a car and you need to take a bus everywhere, because all the shops are on public transportation. But the negative is, if you're a disabled person who has a car, living in South Minneapolis will kind of suck, because you trying to go to the shops and stuff are going to be hard, because there's nowhere for you to really park to go shopping. And Mayor Jake Fry and the city council is just making that more difficult, because they're trying to force everyone to take public transportation. And I get it, like, yay, public transportation is going to save the environment and stuff. But Minneapolis and St. Paul are not like New York City, where we have enough people that driving ends up being a pain. Minnesota, where our population's so low that we're never, and because people don't want to live here because it's so cold, we're never not going to become like a Florida or Texas or New York or Washington or Portland or California or Phoenix, Arizona, because those cities, in Las Vegas, Nevada, those cities are big and popular because they're nice and warm. Minnesota, as long as we keep building apartments in the suburbs to house all generations that are coming to the state, we should be fine. But we just need to build more apartments in the suburbs to meet Minnesota's current demand, and then the problem will be solved. But because it's cold, normal people do not want to wait out at the cold bus stops. Normal people do not want to sit on a smelly bus where people grope you, harass you, try to, whatever, So the city just needs to get their head out of their ass and just build some dumb parking ramps in South Minneapolis, so people who live in the suburbs can go there to shop and improve the economy. And then the other people who live in the area, they can drive to the shops, because in South Minneapolis, if you have a car, sometimes it's just easier driving to Richfield, Bloomington, or St. Louis Park to do your shopping because of parking, and then drive back home. But the city and the city hall leaders and Mayor Drake Fry, they don't see that. And I'm going to tell you, if I had a car, I wouldn't be going through South Minneapolis either. I would be like taking my car, driving. I would just take the highway to Bloomington that goes through the suburbs, Or you mean instead of or go through downtown and then take Highway 55 and then get on the highway there to head towards Bloomington, I would never head through South Minneapolis. And you don't need to, but if the city puts parking ramps there and then in there and encourages people from the suburbs to drive in and park in the parking ramps, it would improve South Minneapolis's economy. But is Mayor Jake Fry going to do that? No, because he needs to be difficult. And then a good thing about South Minneapolis I like is they have the 5/8 Club. They do have one up in Champlin, but Champlin's like the new one. The original one is in South Central Minneapolis or Central South Minneapolis, whatever way you want to put it. And that's the original one. And they compete against Matt's Bar in South Minneapolis with the Juicy Lucy. So the Juicy Lucy is pretty good. I like it. I don't like the way how Matt's Bars runs because Matt's Bar, you pay with cash. They kind of rush you in there. They want you to be quiet and eat, and they rush you out. That's kind of the atmosphere they give you. So when I go to South Minneapolis, I like going to the 5/8 Club because the 5/8 Club has similar tasting food to Matt's Bar. But the 5/8 Club, it's actually like you can pay with your debit card. You can sit down. They're not like rushing you in and out, in and out. You're not like assembly line. You can actually take your time and eat without feeling pressure. So I like going to 5/8 Club. And then also Lake Street in South Minneapolis has a Target. It has a Cubs. It has an Aldi's. And then it also has a bunch of mom and pop Hispanic grocery stores. It has Somalian grocery stores. But a lot of people who live in South Minneapolis, they just bus to downtown and go to the Target headquarters on Nicollet Mall and do shopping there because the busing is just easier technically because it takes the same amount of time to bus to downtown as to the Target and Cubs on Lake Street and all these. But as the rich and the elite are investing in uptown in southwest Minneapolis, it's actually helping people in central South Minneapolis because before they would just bus the downtown to do all their grocery shopping and bus back because it was easier because there was not a lot of, before the George Floyd riots, there wasn't a lot of grocery stores or places to buy food like a Target in South Minneapolis. But after the riots came through and everything was kind of burnt, not everything, but a lot of things were burnt down, looted and stuff, it's actually giving property developers a time to come in, buy those buildings, bulldoze them down, and then they're putting a grocery store on the bottom and apartments on top. And that's bringing in more big chains like Lunds and Barley's, Kowalski's, Fresh Thyme, Whole Foods, but southwest Minneapolis and southeast Minneapolis are getting the most investment because southeast Minneapolis is close to the U of M and close to the river and close to St. Paul. So you can live there and drive right over the river to be in downtown St. Paul. And southwest Minneapolis is getting a lot of investment because people want to live close to Edina and St. Louis Park. But Edina and St. Louis Park are so expensive that a lot of people are moving to the uptown neighborhood that controls southwest Minneapolis, and they're living there, and then they're driving to St. Louis Park and Edina for all their eating, their shopping, or whatever. And the other issue with uptown and southwest Minneapolis is the reason that part of town is dying is because of lack of parking too. Because why, if you have a car, why would you go to uptown where there's an issue with parking, there's an issue trying to find housing that's affordable, when you can, if you have a car, you can, if you do find something you can afford, why fight for the limited parking there? Why try to waste your time trying to find parking when you can just drive 5 minutes south, go to all the shopping malls in St. Louis Park that have parking, or Edina, and just drive back home. So uptown, if uptown and southwest Minneapolis built built a couple parking ramps in some of the old abandoned buildings that the riots made, it would bring more people to that area, because people from the suburbs can actually drive there, park their car for free, and then they could shop in that area. The most struggling part of South Minneapolis right now is central South Minneapolis by the Midtown Global Market, because 95% of their customers came from people leaving downtown, going down Nicollet Avenue to Richfield and to American Boulevard on Bloomington. That's where 95% of their customers came from. But now with the world changing and people can now work from home, so a lot of the shootings, the crime, the robberies, the drug addicts, the homelessness, the homeless, the homeless prostitutes, the Hispanic immigrants who are begging for employment, all the problems are in South Minneapolis are happening in South Central Minneapolis, right where Lake Street and Hennepin Avenue meet, because there's a lack of opportunities right there right now. Unless you want to work in restaurants, there's a lack of opportunities there right now, because the way downtown Minneapolis is collapsing, because Mayor Jack Fry and these rich elite property developers are not saving it. So then it's destroying South Central Minneapolis that relies on the traffic of people going to Richfield and Bloomington, going home and going to work. And the way that Minneapolis can save that area is by putting more parking ramps, taking some of the buildings that were destroyed during the riots, knocking them down, putting some parking ramps so people from the suburbs that want to go there and party and have fun can easily park. And then what you do is you take the other buildings that are old and crummy, you knock them down, put shops and restaurants below, apartments above, so then everyone else who's then moving to Minnesota looking for housing, or already lives here looking for housing, they can live along Nicollet Avenue. So then Nicollet Avenue would get customers from all the single family homes around the street. They would get customers from the few people who are still going downtown for work. And then they would get the new residents who are living above the shops, giving them 3 ways of customers. So when one fails, they still have 2 other methods keeping that area alive and keeping it economically stable. And also, the city of Minneapolis needs to invest more in the Midtown Global Market. They just need to. Because that central South Minneapolis lacks major grocery stores, because most of their income is based off restaurants and stuff. So they lack major grocery stores. They lack housing. They lack parking spots where people can park for free. And then they lack modern housing where higher income people that are trying to move to Minnesota, find their first place to live without their parents, to help flow the economy and to help meet the demand of housing in the city. So it's kind of like a double whammy. So if you're going to live in South Minneapolis, you want to live in Southeast Minneapolis, or you want to live like in the Longfellow neighborhood, or you want to live in southwest Minneapolis, in the uptown neighborhood, where the investments that are going there aren't perfect, but at least there's investment. Well, south central Minneapolis is the part of South Minneapolis that's falling apart because there's no investment from the city. Like the city is like acting like they want that part of the city to fail on purpose. So, because that part of the city, because if south central Minneapolis keeps falling apart, it's going to eventually affect southeast Minneapolis and southwest Minneapolis, because the trouble is going to then ruin the nice areas that the cities are trying to invest in and spice up on. Because the Longfellow neighborhood is in South Minneapolis is very nice. Bunch of single family homes. There's a Cubs, there's a Target, there's an Aldi's, there's a Wells Fargo Bank. There's like 3 Somalian restaurants over there. There's the bowling alley. There's Free Geek that helps low income people get computers and all that stuff. Wonderful neighborhood. Southeast Minneapolis is a very good community to live in. Southwest Minneapolis has a chain of lakes, has a Cub Foods, has a Whole Foods, has a Lunds and Barley's. Things that people actually want near their house. And so those are the 2 areas of South Minneapolis I would say move to. South central Minneapolis near the Midtown Global Market, until they start investing in that area, the city actually starts caring about that area and actually starts investing in that area is going to be trouble. When I went to look at apartments after my LaSalle Plaza or LaSalle apartments in the LaSalle Plaza apartment leases end, I looked in that area because there were apartments I could afford. When your 3rd level apartment building has prison windows up on the 3rd floor, it just tells you that that's not a community you want to live in. So then I checked Richfield. Well, Richfield is too expensive. Bloomington was too expensive. North Minneapolis is very expensive, but the more towards you go to Merlin's Liquors, the cheaper the rents get, because Merlin's Liquors is in the poor sub part of North Minneapolis. So the closer you go to Merlin's Liquor, the cheaper the rent got, but more scary the neighborhood got. So and then I didn't want to live near Merlin's Liquor, like, because of all the shooting, the drugs, and homeless people there. So that's how I ended up checking out that's how I ended up checking like Robbinsdale, New Hope, Crystal, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Columbia Heights, Fridley, and Blaine. And I ended up choosing Columbia Heights because it has central. I can easily get to the U of M. I can easily get to downtown. I can easily get to the Fridley North Star train station. I can easily get to the downtown North Star train station. I can get to the North Town Mall Blaine. I can get to the Rosedale Mall in Roseville through the 32 bus. And I had all these I can get to St. Anthony with the 801 bus. You mean I have all this opportunity, and I also get to live in a suburb. So double win for me. I wanted to make this podcast episode to talk about, this kind of stuff. So then we can have a discussion about how can we save South Central or Central South Minneapolis, where the heart of the Midtown Global Market is. How can we save it? How can we invest in it? And this podcast episode is also to tell you guys, not all South Minneapolis is dangerous. Like, there's struggling parts of South Minneapolis is a struggling area, but not all South Minneapolis is horrible like what you read in the news. Like 95% of the things that you read in the news is happening in South Central Minneapolis, over by Midtown Global Market. I hope you guys have a good day today. Bye-bye.